Hello, everyone, again. A pleasure to be here. So, this session is going to be called the Fireside Chat. First of all, this conversation is just going to be an opportunity for us girls to have our questions answered by an expert, like questions that are about puberty or questions that are about our sexual health. A true expert will be here to take those and to give us clearance and understanding. So I really urge you to pay attention because some questions here are going to save your life. So just a brief introduction of our speaker. Her name is Dr. Abosede Lewu, and she's a founder and medical director of the flagship women's hospital, ORB Women's Clinic. Let's clap for her, please. She's the convener of Keep All Mothers Alive project and founder of Girls Aid Initiative, a non-profit organization that has reached over 400,000 girls, women, and youths in underserved communities with free and accessible healthcare services. She's a highly experienced public health expert, trained obstetrician and gynecologist, and development practitioner with over 20 years of experience working in various sectors with both local and international organizations. She's an alumnus of Harvard Kennedy School of Government, University of Lagos, and Maiduguri, and she's an Edward Mason Fellow, John F. Kennedy Fellow, Adrian Cheng, and Mandela Washington Fellow. Dr. Abosede remains a transformational and intersectional leader who believes that we, as Nigerians, have what it takes to build the Nigeria of our dreams. Let's welcome her. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. You guys are younger, you have more energy, more vibe. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, that sounds better. Thank you so much for the introduction.
All right, so I want to assure you guys that these questions are from a girl's perspective, so please pay attention. All right, our first one is, period cramps pose a significant challenge for numerous girls and women worldwide, especially those who endure severe discomfort. I'm sure a lot of us do. So while conventional over-the-counter remedies like ibuprofen and Panadol are often suggested to alleviate the pains, research indicates that prolonged use of these are associated with liver and kidney complications. That is, a lot of us that probably take ibuprofen on our periods, we are likely to get liver problems because of it. So what really is now the solution? What recommendations as a professional, as an expert, as a gynecologist yourself, can you recommend to us girls to manage our menstrual discomfort and to be able to carry on with our daily activities when our menstruation starts?
Okay, so thank you very much for this question. So I'm going to start by asking everybody in this room that if you have ever had menstrual cramp, raise up your hand.
A good number.
If you have ever had menstrual cramp that stopped you from going to school or going out of the house, raise up your hand. Okay, so thank you very much for that. One of the things I want us to learn, one house, beautiful ladies, one of the things I want us to learn that there are two types. So let me do medicine 101 or gynae 101. So when we talk about menstrual cramps, for some people it starts few days before their period. Am I correct? Yes. For some people, it's the day of their period on day 2 that it starts. There are some people that the menstrual cramp starts before the period, occurs during the period, and continues after the period. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. So this is for you. I am telling you the different types of menstrual cramp for you to realize that there is no one-size-fits-all to management of menstrual cramp. Now, as a professional, I will tell you that menstrual cramp, we have the primary and the secondary. So when we talk about primary, it means that what is causing this menstrual cramp in you is in the lining of your womb. There's something called prostaglandin. What did I say?
Prostaglandin.
Who wants to be a doctor here, by the way? Okay, all right. So you'll be getting used to all these tongue twisting things I'm saying. So when you release prostaglandin, it's the one that causes your womb to be contracting that causes that pain. And you find that those are the ones that start few days before the period, the first or second day. But by the time you start shedding and the menstrual flow is continuing, you see that the pain starts subsiding because the source of that prostaglandin is going out of your body and then it fizzles out. Now we have the one that is the secondary, meaning that what is causing that pain is beyond that prostaglandin. And for young girls that have that, it is worthwhile for your parents to take you to see a gynecologist. And that is because some of these causes of dysmenorrhea, which is what we call it on menstrual cramp, the girls will have done better if the management had started earlier in their life, especially if it's the secondary type. You see the primary type, as you're getting older, some will even say as you have children, it gets better. The secondary type, as you're getting older, it actually gets more intense. And for some of these young girls, it becomes a disease they manage in their 20s and 30s. So if your menstrual cramp is severe enough, one of the things we must normalize is going to seek for care so that they can tell you, madam, don't worry, this one is primary one, she will outgrow it. Or this is something that we can intervene immediately. So what are the things you can use? I will say before your period starts, if you're someone that has menstrual cramp, exercising around your period, sleeping well, staying away from sweet things. I know that is tough. That is tough. Because there's this cold Fanta craving that comes around that time. That thing is pushing you. It's almost like village people. It's doing ping, ping, ping. What you do to modify your diet slightly before that time helps. Sleeping well, exercising, they help. Warm compress also helps, or cold compress. So if you have this warm water bottle, you can put it around the low, that area of cramp, you can place it, it also helps. The truth of the matter is that some need painkillers, like you said, some need pain relief. All these things is not enough for them to be able to function with their period. However, what I want you to realize is that for most primary dysmenorrhea, which is most likely what is common in your age group, it is usually day 1 and day 2 that is very painful. But because of the fear of the pain, some of you use the painkiller for throughout the period, like you don't even want to see it. So you're using it before day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 7. Please, if you're using it, by 3rd day, you should stop it. Now, if you are the kind of person that when you find that you stop it, you can't function, please, I advise you speak to your school supervisor, your nurse, or your parents, so that we can find out what is causing the problem if it's something that is amenable to other forms of treatment. There are other treatments which are beyond the scope of this conversation, but if your period is so painful that you're unable to function, then they need to rule out that there's no secondary cause to your menstrual pain. So lifestyle modification, analgesic for a few days, especially the intense 48 hours, and then if nothing is working, please let your parents take you to see a gynecologist. I hope that helps.
That was a very comprehensive answer. Let's clap for her. All right. So this one is very personal. It's advisable for girls to change their sanitary pads every 8 hours during menstruation, equating to 4 pads per day. However, many may argue that the rising cost of pads is a concern. What alternative, both safe and hygienic, do you propose to addressing this predicament?
Look, even for me, it's personal. It's not just you. Because I basically have 4 daughters living in my house. And so you can imagine, if we're doing 4 pads per day, right? How many of us here are still seeing our period for 6, 7 days, 5 days? 3 days.
8.
You people are so lucky. 8 days.
Hey.
Okay. 4 days. 5. So 5 times 4, 20. Most of these sanitary towels, how many do we have in them? 8 or 7.
8 or 7, yes.
So we're now having 2 to 3 packs. So let me tell you the first thing I do. This one is not medical advice. Is that I'm a market surveyor. What did I say?
I'm a market surveyor.
New products come out. every time. I do like cost analysis and I compare sanitary towel to one another. There are some that are actually 1/3 of the price of some of the known brands that we're using. So first, be curious to know the new products that are available. There are sanitary towels that are still in the range of 350, while there are some that are 1,000 naira already or 1,000 plus for 7, 8. So be curious about that, one. Two, we are now in the space where people are talking about reusable sanitary materials. People are now making their own sanitary materials. And there are guidelines that must be followed. So I think one of the things that can help is that sometimes, this is something that I'm also committed to, maybe a few schools should train students on how to actually make their own sanitary towel, because it is becoming very, very expensive. And I've met a young girl before that says her grandmother gives her one pad to use a day. So what she does when she's on her cycle is that she walks around, like instead of sitting down. I'm like, how does that work? She says somehow when she sits down is when it spreads. So she walks around and she goes to the restroom to rinse intermittently so that her pad will not get soaked. And I've seen people that because of sanitary, which is what we call period poverty, they actually don't go to schools during this period. I also want to say that when schools or when institutions are now, which is beyond the scope of we children, but I can see that a lot of our teachers and our leaders are here, is to realize that having a pad bank is essential in any institution. I went to the restroom here when I was here, and there was water, but there was no tissue paper. I mean, what if someone here needed a tissue paper or a pad? We need a pad bank so that we can help these girls to sort of buffer. So when people come into schools, I know a lot of people bring interventions to school. It's always a good thing to tell them that actually we would like for you to give us this in addition, or if you want to swap places. For where you have a lot of girls, pads have become very expensive. So learning how to make reusable pad is actually going to be a life skill for the future. And now we're even talking about climate change. We're talking about waste disposal. It's not just that you are buying pad. You now have to think about how to effectively discard 20 or 30 sanitary towels as well. For a lot of people, I've seen girls that they tie what they use for years in their house. It's like if you can see pad that they've been using for years, they don't know where to throw it, so they just keep storing it in nylon and storing it in their homes. So reusable absorbent is also something that we can exploit, something that we can read online, but there are even organizations that actually train girls on how to make their own sanitary materials as well.
I really like that. I hope you guys are taking notes. I'm not seeing any notebooks. I hope you guys are, because it's very valuable information. So we'll go on to the next question. We are rarely provided information about our vagina, yes, I said the word, and what goes on down there. What measures can girls take to promote their vaginal health, and what danger signs should they be on the lookout for?
Okay, so, hello. Say vagina. Say it. It's part of your body. It is a part of your body. When you deny that part exists in your body, you are going to be in ignorance. Secondly, that is the part you must protect at all costs. What did I say you must do? Protect at all costs. When somebody asked the question, when the last panel asked the question about what is the most unique thing about a woman, and someone said, oh, it's the ability to have children, I laughed. Because in as much as there are so many grand things, as a gynecologist and as an obstetrician, that is literally what we sit down with. It is the ability for you to conceive and to have children that brings people in and out of most gyne consultation. Now, if you're careless with your vagina in your activities, thoughts, it will have ripple effects on your reproductive function. So it's just a reproductive organ. It's your head, hand, all those parts of your body that you are comfortable talking about, because what you know is different from what you don't know. So I find a lot of young girls, because you find it hard to talk about, even when girls are under stress or they are endangered, because they can't talk about their private parts, they also don't even know how to report or how to raise alarm when somebody is putting them in a dangerous situation. Now, what can you do? Good hygiene. What did I say? Good what?
Hygiene.
I know that at this phase in life, it's very difficult to manage washing your clothes. Please, wash your underwears Ladies' underwear has to be worn how many times before you wash? How many times?
One.
It's not boxers, so even though boxers should be every day too. But please, wear your underwear once and wash it once you wear it first. Secondly, for those of you that are already having puberty, which is pubic hair has started growing, if you have a very, very well-grown pubic area, it is time for you to learn how to trim it. You see, I didn't use the word shave. Trim. Yes. This is something your moms, your auntie, your sisters can put you through the process. Because we find that sometimes, once a young girl starts having a lot of pubic hair, if you don't keep that pubic hair within like a lower level, you are at risk of having itching. Some, if you go and start shaving and you are doing clean shave, you can even have boil. How many of us, even in this age, boil is very common. Do we agree? So you want to trim it down. You want to make sure your undies are well kept. The next one is, I'm going to take that question when we're addressing some of the questions that came out in the other place, is also to avoid any form of sexual activity as a young person. What did I say you should avoid? Any form of sexual activity as a young person. One, the neck of your womb and the lining of your womb is not yet matured. What did I say? The neck of your womb, lining of your womb, they are not well matured. Even the pelvic bone that you are going to use to become mother of nation is not yet fully matured. So, knowing that these are things that you must protect at this early phase of your life is very critical. It's important in keeping a healthy vaginal health. So, and then note that because of the hormonal changes you are going through now, candida is very common in your age. Do you know what candida is? Or do you know what yeast is? One whitish discharge like that is very common. It looks like, they call it coddy white. How many of you have experienced it here? Yes. Please don't think something is wrong with you. It's the hormonal changes that you are going through. When you enter university, you find out that most young women, that's what they are coming in to complain about, is as your hormone starts to change, the normal flora, that's the normal bacteria that lives in our body, starts to change. So that, again, take note of that as something that you may have as you are growing older.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So let's move on to the next question. This should be the last one.
It's an HPV, but that will be the last.
Oh, okay, yes, that'll be last, okay. So during puberty, when hormonal changes significantly impact teenagers, many girls may find themselves attracted to boys. Could you provide some guidance on navigating relationships with the opposite sex during this phase? This was a question from the last panel. You guys pay attention.
Okay. So, how many of us have noticed that if you put a candle or a light, like a gas, have you noticed that children like to touch it? Have you ever noticed it? But as old as you are, when you see them trying to touch it, what do you feel like? They're like, hey, you these children, you don't know anything. Is that not it? I promise you, whatever you think you are feeling or you know now, 10, 15 years from now, you will look at a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old, and you look at her and say, you want boyfriend? You don't know anything. That's the first thing you should know. Your ability to reason now is based on your years of experience. That is why when you see a 2-year-old, it's so obvious to you that, wow, so you want to touch this fire. You don't know this fire can burn your hand. But the 2-year-old genuinely does not know that the fire can burn their hand. They're just fascinated by it. The reason why I'm using this analogy for you is for you to realize that whatever you are feeling now, oh, I know those feelings, trust me. 10 years from now, you're even going to be like, why did I fall my own hand like this? What did I even do this to myself? First, the ability to be attracted to the opposite sex is part of the hormonal changes. The same thing that made you grow breasts, the same thing that made you grow pubic hair, the same thing that made you have menstruation. There's a hormone that they call kisspeptin. It's also the one that they said it helps you to, it kind of develops the attraction to the opposite sex. But like one of the panelists said, what you do with the attraction is what can change the trajectory of your life. I have, as a gynecologist, I have seen too many girls with regrets that I'm going to give you an example. So I have seen a 17-year-old girl that had a boyfriend and then she got pregnant. And she didn't want to tell her parents. and then she found a way to terminate that pregnancy. But she did it in, of course, termination of pregnancy in Nigeria is restricted by law. So she did it in such a way that the two younger sisters had to rush her to the hospital. And by the time they came to the hospital, we were like, okay, so who brought you here? They said they brought themselves. She's been complaining of that her tummy is hurting her. And then we're like, okay, so what do we tell your parents? They were like, oh no, she's schooling somewhere far away. She doesn't school in Lagos. So the parents don't even know she's in Lagos. I tell you that before we could get this young girl to the theater, because we knew what had happened already, she actually passed away at 17. So the two younger sisters were now looking at themselves like, who is going to call our parents? Like whatever she felt at the beginning of that relationship, to that day, was inconsequential to the consequences of that singular activity that she engaged in. I'll tell you for a fact that having a boyfriend when you're too young is distracting. What did I say? It's distracting. Even now, because I know all of you now will be liking celebrities, all these superstars. You can spend 1 hour and be imagining that you are hanging out with one of these celebrities. Where you can be thinking that, if the video should just take me on this private jet, you can spend 1 hour. If you have boyfriend, just multiply that hour by 10 hours. You have not done your assignments. You have not gone for your coding like our keynote speaker said. You have not thought about how you are going to develop AI. You are thinking about one boy. The boy too is not thinking about you. Trust me. He's busy. He's doing his own assignments. He's gisting his friends and telling them that, don't mind that girl, she likes me. Me that I like 20 girls. She doesn't know anything. He's cooking your breakfast. What did I say? He's cooking your breakfast. So, please, there is time for everything. Attraction is normal. It is the action you take that can affect your future. Or then, sometimes the boy does not even have any ill intention towards you. But when you put yourself in proximity and those hormones take charge of your thinking faculty, you can make a mistake that will affect both of you. And how many of you know here that most of the common sexually transmitted infection is actually more among young girls? It's not when you are a 20-something-year-old woman that you are smart enough to insist on control. It's when you are young and you don't know anything. That's when we have HIV, all the STIs that can affect in future. And that's why you hear people talking about teenage pregnancy. Have you heard 20s pregnancy when people are categorizing it? No. You hear teenage pregnancy. It's more common in that age group. And also, have you noticed, if there's teenage pregnancy, who leaves the school? Does the boy leave the school?
No.
So now, who will be carrying the tummy around? Girl. Also, as a gynecologist and obstetrician, I will tell you that teenage pregnancy has more complications than when a woman is matured. So many maternal mortality arise from girls getting pregnant when their body and their physique cannot carry it. Not to even talk about the mental impact of being a mother or having to terminate when you are not ready for all those conversations. So you see, boyfriend, there will be enough time. What did I say?
There will be enough time.
There will be enough time for what?
Boyfriend.
And if a guy is asking you out now and you are saying no and he doesn't like you, the guy himself, just like a 2-year-old does not know what fire is, the boy himself does not know what he wants in a girl. He's just responding to the hormones. Everybody is just hormonal. By the time you're in your 20s and 30s, what you clearly want will be defined. And I promise you, for guys that are very progressive, for guys that they know what they are going for, they also know the standard of women they want in their lives. And if you have truncated yourself with the actions you took as a teenager, my dear, you're not going to be in the running. You will have been part of the breakfast gang. So please, it's not yet time for what?
Boyfriend.
So now is to focus on your studies. Yes.
And yourself. Thank you so much. That was such a compliment. Let's clap for her. Let's clap. Okay, so before we go on to the last question, if you guys have any other questions, you can just prepare them down and give it to Osha. She will take them after this last question. So get ready to have your questions answered after this one. Let's go on to the last one. There are a lot of conversations about the human papilloma virus and the need for young girls to receive the HPV vaccine. Can you enlighten us on that?
Okay. How many of us here know about cancer? Have you ever heard the word cancer before? So somebody tell me what you think cancer can do to someone that has a cancer. Okay, what? It can what? Do you know how perfect our world would be if we could find something that could stop cancer? Will our world not be better off for it? So now I'm going to tell you about the cancer called cervical cancer. Now, the cervix is the neck of the womb. What did I say? Cervix is the neck of the womb. There are two cancers that women have the most in the world. We have one, breast cancer. Two, cervical cancer. Now, for breast cancer, unfortunately, there's really nothing we can do to preempt it. However, studies have shown that over 90% of cervical cancer they are caused by, over 99, some studies, are caused by something called human papilloma virus. What did I say? Human papilloma virus. And there is now a vaccine to prevent infection with human papilloma virus. So it only makes sense that we take the vaccine, don't you think so? Yes. So that is one of the important things. And it's not a vaccine that they give it to babies. You know, most of the vaccine we're used to, they give it to children. This is a vaccine they start giving from when children are 9-year-old. In fact, the government is trying to roll out, I think, from 9 to 13 or 14-year-old. So it is critical in the war against cervical cancer because it's very common in low, middle-income countries like Nigeria for vaccination for us to embrace it. So when you hear people talking to you about, oh, what's this vaccine about? It's about protecting your future. Now, the vaccine itself does not give you permission to say, okay, now I have vaccine, I can do anyhow. You still have to protect your sexual health. But the vaccine helps to reduce or prevent the infection with human papilloma virus, which causes cervical cancer down the road. So this is a conversation you can have with your parents. Tell them that you heard about the human papilloma virus. They can find a way to learn more about it so that they will allow you to be vaccinated against the human papilloma virus.
Thank you so much. That's very interesting.
Yes.
So who has the questions? Let's come forward with questions so that we can quickly get this over with. Oh, wow, there are lots.
We'll check through and then lump some together.
Okay.
Someone asked here that does human papilloma virus affect boys too? Yes. But remember that boys don't have cervix. So they don't have the neck of the womb. It is a sexually transmitted disease. But unfortunately, the cancer that we're talking about, cervical cancer, happens in women. You know, it is like getting pregnant. The man or the boy contributes to the pregnancy, but it's the woman that carries the evidence. This human papilloma virus is a bit like that too. So it's sexually transmitted, but the cervical cancer, in some countries, they vaccinate both boys and girls, but in a lot of countries, the girls that they are vaccinating. So yes, it affects boys too. So I have a question that says, if a girl is 11 years and has not grown breasts or started menstruating, what is wrong with that girl?
They're quite young.
Please, this question should be, what is happening, not what is wrong. I will tell you, there is nothing wrong. What did I say? There is nothing wrong. So there are several, so I'm going to explain to you what are the evidence of puberty in a girl. There's something we call growth spurt. What did I say? Growth spurt. How many of you are in GSS 3 now? Can you remember how short you were in GSS 1? Have you added height? That's a form of growth spurt. That's the evidence that you are growing into puberty. Secondly, how many of you have armpit hair now? That's an evidence of puberty. How many of you have started having pubic hair too? Evidence of puberty. Breast growth and menstruation are the other two parts of features of puberty. So those ones I asked you, the height, the hair growth, they are also evidence of puberty. So we can only say a young girl has delayed puberty if she has not had any of this and she's 13. Or she now has everything but she's not menstruating by 15. So someone that is 11, so long as you are achieving your growth, you have started seeing pubic hair, armpit hair, don't worry, the breast will come. And then the menstruation will start when the time is right. You should also look at your weight as well. because there's a critical weight that a girl needs to get to that triggers the onset of menstruation and even breast growth. I know it feels somehow because now everybody around you is wearing bra, everybody is feeling like a big girl. You are just wearing singlets. Don't worry. The time will come. Don't be in a hurry.
This one is like what you just said.
Okay. So if you fall outside of the age bracket, if you're 13 and you don't have any of these features, you can see me. We'll just have a conversation. If you are 15 and you have some of these features but you've not seen your period, don't worry. I'm on standby for you today. So let's have that puberty question at once. And there's a lot of question here about period. So the normal, now I say normal with a caveat, duration of period is about 3 days to 7 days. Some will even say 2 days to 7 days. Now, when a young girl starts her period, she is not ovulating regularly. What did I say? She's not ovulating regularly. How many of you have experienced you see your period this month, you not see it for the next 3 months or 2 months? Or you don't even know the day is coming to just behave anyhow and come anytime? That's because it takes some years before your ovulation and menstrual pathway matures. So it can be unpredictable. In this phase, we see young girls that they don't see their period for months, and then they now see the period, it will now be pouring for weeks. I've even seen someone say 3-4 weeks, they are still menstruating. For some young girls, it's because their period is yet to stabilize, their ovulation is yet to stabilize. So there's like a miscommunication between what is happening in their brain and their bodies. For a lot of young girls, within 2 to 3 years, their menstrual pattern settles. But new research is even now showing that some girls, it takes them as much as 8 years before the pattern becomes, okay, I see my period every 27, 28 days. I see it for 3 to 4 days. But if you're seeing your period for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, please, this is one of the things you should talk to your parents about, and they should also take you to the hospital, because if the bleeding is heavy, it can actually cause some young girls to actually have lower blood. So there's a big question here. Can I use tissue paper when I'm on my period? You said what? Well, people that use tissue paper during their period, it's probably part of the period. We talked about the pad being expensive now. And we find that a lot of people use it maybe when they're out of pad, and they're like, my flow is not as heavy as it used to be. However, it puts you at a risk of infection. So it is not advisable, which is why we talk about these reusable pads. If you have those reusable pads to augment what you're using, it's still safer than using tissue. Sometimes the tissue, you will not be able to reach it when you're cleaning up, and they can become focus of infection. So it's actually not advisable for you to use tissue paper. What is the so, like I said, if your menstruation pattern has not improved, so long as you are not engaging in any sexual activity, for some young girls, it takes a long time for you to settle into a monthly pattern. Someone asks if they have primary or secondary dysmenorrhea. You can't really know. It's like it's something that is diagnosed at clinical assessment when you go into the hospital. But if you are finding that after day 1 or day 2 you are okay, it's likely the primary and not the secondary type. So for the vaccine, there are private hospitals that are giving them. They are quite pricey. But the one that the government is doing, they postponed it to this month. It was supposed to be September. Is to find the primary health care center around you and then go with your parents. Remember that unlike this person gave an analogy of what happened during COVID vaccine, unlike the COVID vaccine that was for the adults, this one is specifically for young girls within a specific age bracket. So it should be more coordinated. So find out from your own primary health center in your locality where you should go to for the vaccination. I can see that one is. So parents should, like I said, it's something your parents should educate themselves about and know that it won't be the same because there's a smaller pool of recipients of the HPV vaccine. Okay. So
all right. Thank you so much for your comprehensive answers. If you had any personal questions, maybe you said, this is my name, this is my story or something, please, we don't have time, so just meet Dr. Abosede about it. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I want the...
Please, a round of applause for them. Thank you so much, Dr. Leo. Thank you so much. Really appreciate this.